This is way worse than we thought. A huge update for a huge superstar for the Buccaneers. Someone that we thought we might have a bit earlier in the season. Things have changed due to Jason Licht and some of his comments. So now we're working on what the beginning of this season is going to be looking like without our huge superstar there to help us. I'm Sebastian with Buccaneers Digest. Welcome back, guys. Make sure to subscribe, as 95% are not subscribed, but that's okay because all you got to do is hit the bell, hit the button, and join Bucs Digest here with us. We are on our way to 2,000 subscribers, and it should be great because we're going to be having live streams for the first few games. It's right around the corner, guys. Almost a week away for the first Bucs game against the Falcons. But we will be without our guy Chris Godwin for a little longer than we were anticipating. Jason Licht was recently on radio talking about this. Rick Stroud here reporting that Chris Godwin will miss the first month of the season and possibly more, according to Bucs GM Jason Licht. However, there's a chance Tristan Wirfs returns sooner. So it's a bummer. There's no other way to kind of put this. We were honestly under the impression when the Bucs said that we're not going to put Godwin on the PUP list that he'd be, making his return for like week 4, maybe even week 3, and because there were reports that he was going to start training and returning to practice by week 2 to like ramp up to a week 4 return possibly. And now they're saying like, listen, it's regardless, he won't really be doing much until October. So that's a bit of a bummer. And people are kind of, questioning, okay, should we have put him on the PUP list if he's going to be out for this long anyway? I don't know what exactly the deadline would be on that, if we can still do that or not. But overall, big, unfortunate news because we were hoping that we would at least have him for the Eagles game. That you don't put him on the PUP list because you want him practicing earlier. Now, this means that, okay, if we're looking at a week 5 return or maybe even a week 6 return, that might mean, okay, he's practicing in week 3 or week 4, ramping up to a week 5 or week 6 return. Because if you're on the PUP list, you're not even allowed to be at practice. You're just like not participating at all. That's the whole like physically unable to perform list. That's kind of how it goes. So that's probably why like they still didn't put him on, even if they don't think he can return for week 4 against the Eagles. They still want him practicing around that time. And so that's probably what that's all about, and not, a mistake that was made too soon. Jason, even, we have his comments specifically. He said, I want to make sure that we're being thoughtful and smart about this, not putting them out there, that being Tristan and Godwin, out there too early and having a setback that could not just upset the season, but upset their careers. Right now, I'm erring on the side of caution. We're looking for Chris at October, and for Tristan, maybe a little sooner. It's week-to-week thing, and we'll see how they keep progressing. I mean, in the end, they have to be responsible about these things. And just like Jason said, if they make even like the most small miscalculation when it comes to bringing them back, because everyone's eager to see Godwin back. He is a staple in this franchise. He was just named one of the best players in Buccaneers history. I believe he was like number 16 overall. He will definitely be higher by the time he finishes his career with us. And to have that kind of a staple, like I have his jersey, a lot of other people have his jersey. People want to see Godwin. But at the same time, we don't, like, he just re-signed with us for a 3-year deal. If we put him back in too early and he re-hurts himself, there's a chance that, like, yeah, he's out for the rest of the year, and his healing process, takes a much longer time. He'll be maybe affected, like Jason said, for the rest of his career. And we want to see Chris at his best. So if that requires him missing the first 4 to 5 games to get him back into, like, where he needs to be, then so be it. Because all Bucs fans know we're not questioning Godwin's work ethic. Same thing for Tristan Wirfs. It's really nice to hear that for Tristan. He could be back sooner rather than later. You could even argue it's more crucial to get Tristan back sooner than it is Godwin. Not because Godwin isn't great, obviously, but it's because we're so deep at the receiver position but not exactly as deep when it comes to left tackle. And specifically Tristan, he's an irreplaceable talent. I mean, there's a lot of people who would argue he's the best left tackle in the league, and I obviously am one of those people. So when you lose that, you're losing quite your offensive capabilities and just how much time you have to throw, the run blocking, all of that good stuff. He is a crucial part of just how this offense operates. So that's why I think that Tristan is a bit more of a crucial piece to come back sooner if we had to choose. So that's kind of the bright side to this. Tristan seems to be kind of working his way back a little bit better than Godwin. Not in the sense that like Godwin's not working, obviously, but in just like his healing process maybe has gone a bit better in recent weeks. So that's all very positive stuff. And besides with Godwin last year before he got hurt was on a really good tear. He had already 578 yards through 7 games. He had a 5 touchdowns, and he was well on his way. I think he was like the number 1 fantasy receiver by that point in the season. So really tough, to see him go down because it felt like Godwin was back better than ever, and now unfortunately he is going to have to like deal with the ramifications of like coming back from another really serious injury that is something in an area that he uses quite often as a receiver with his ankle. And so that's something that he obviously has to make sure is good to go before he's like, going, full tilt, putting everything he has into the games, blocking, because he's one of our best blocking receivers that we've ever had. Not to mention, even Brady and Baker both said that he has the best hands on the team. No slouch on Mike Evans, obviously, but Mike's had his drops here and there. But Mike's more of a vertical threat. He loves the fade routes in the end zone, probably one of the best red zone threats of all time. Whereas like third down, I feel like the ball is going to Godwin. He is just so reliable. The Bucs were actually the best third down team last year, and so Godwin is going to be like itching on every third down on the sideline to be out there and helping our team during those situations. Josh Grizzard, who was our passing game coordinator last year under Liam Cohen, was actually calling plays on third down, so he was dialing it up for Chris Godwin on a lot of those plays, and it was very successful. So Grizzard's going to be really wanting Godwin for those moments. But, patience is a virtue. When we get him back, hopefully whether it's week 5, week 6, whatever it is, that it's the best version of Godwin and not one that we rushed back in there. That could, is a bit more fragile. And, we'd be worrying like, oh my gosh, like don't re-hurt yourself. Like watch your ankle. We just want, Godwin to feel as healthy as possible for these big moments. Because he's a huge part in beating the Lions, beating the Eagles, all these big wins that we had earlier in the season. He was a huge part of that, and so there's gonna be a lot of big games, especially for like a playoff push. We're gonna need him for that push specifically. So first, you never want to say no game is important in the season, but we would all much rather have Godwin for the second half and then the playoffs, rather than like the first few games like it was last year where it was like the first half of the season and then we lose him for the rest of the year. So that's just an important thing to note. And then also it's also really important to note that we have really good receivers here to back him up, like or kind of hold the ground. 2 really awesome rookies that we brought in, Emeka Egbuka, who looked fabulous in training camp and in preseason, and then also Tez Johnson, who had a pretty awesome week 3 preseason performance, who really solidified his part on the team, and they'll both be doing quite a bit on the offensive side while Chris is. Is really impressive. So I think there's just a lot of different types of weapons too. It's not like the prototype is all the same type of receiver. These guys have different skill sets, and we can utilize them in all kinds of ways. And Josh Grizzard has been coming up with all kinds of different trick plays and plays that can get these guys open, or disguises, or motions, whatever it takes to confuse the defenses. But when you have an abundance of riches of offensive weapons, you it's so much fun as an offensive coordinator. I can only imagine. And then when Chris Godwin comes back, it's just going to be even better. And so I'm totally fine with Chris taking the time he needs, and I'm sure a lot of Bucs fans feel the same. But I do want to ask you guys, what do you feel about the Chris Godwin situation, and what do you think would be better for the team? Keep him out even longer. Maybe we're risking too much by letting him stay out really long. And especially if we're not putting him on the PUP list, should he try and make a push for Game 4 against the Eagles? Where are your feelings on this? Are you more nervous about Godwin or excited about Tristan Wirfs coming back earlier? Let me know in the comments below where your feelings are on this situation. I'm a bit concerned, obviously, just in terms of okay, his healing isn't going exactly as quickly as we had hoped before. But that doesn't mean he won't be himself. I trust Godwin. I trust this staff. I trust that Jason's saying I'm erring on the side of caution. So that's really what matters, is the trust that there is between the fan base and the Buccaneers coaches and staff and all those guys. They have the best interest of the team in mind. No one's trying to be selfish, saving their own jobs. We see a lot of those situations in other teams, where it's clearly the moves that they're doing are to save their own skin and their own careers rather than doing what's best for the team. And so this feels like what's best for the team right now, and the player specifically. You have to save them from themselves. They want to get on the field as soon as possible, even when they're not exactly 100% ready. And I respect that. And I just know that patience will be paid off, and it typically works out for the best in a lot of situations. And we'll get Godwin back and ready when he is ready, and when we're ready to make a playoff and Super Bowl push, because I think this team is ready for that. So yeah, sound down below. Let me know what you think, and I will see you guys in the next video.